We'll get started as we always do on our backs. So if you go ahead and lay back, you can lay back with your legs straight if you like, or if you prefer to have your knees bent, then certainly please bend your knees if that feels better on your back. You can also always put a bolster underneath your knees or a pillow if you have something like that available to you. And then the arms are down by your sides, palms are going to face up. And we'll start like we always do with 3 cleansing breaths. So 3 times you're going to breathe in through your nose. You're going to open your mouth and you're going to sigh through the mouth really loud. And just doing that 3 times at your own pace, no rush. And after you take those 3 sighs, you're going to start breathing just in and out through your nose. For those of you familiar with Ujjayi breath, if you choose to start that at this time, you can. And for those of you not as familiar with Ujjayi breath, I typically start to teach it by saying that you keep your mouth closed, but it's as if you are saying the word ha on your exhale. And what you should start to feel is this slight constriction in the back of the throat. And then you will also hear your breath going in and out. So we use Ujjayi breath to bring our consciousness, bring our mind towards the internal. And of course, if you do not wish to engage the Ujjayi breath, you certainly don't have to. It's just an option for you. And because we're going to work on Durga pranayama, 3-part breath later on, just take this moment before we start moving here to notice where is the breath flowing the most easily. So you're not intentionally changing anything about your breathing, but just notice if the chest is rising and falling the most, or the abdomen, or perhaps in between, right in the middle. And then notice what part is moving the least. And of course, we know that as soon as we start to pay attention to something, it will change simply by the observation itself, but not putting any intentional effort on changing the breath. And then now that you've taken a moment to notice that, go ahead and wiggle your fingers and toes, let your eyes start to flutter open, and then bring the knees in towards the chest. You're just going to give those knees a nice tight little squeeze and rock a little side to side. And then you're going to start to make those circles with the knees. So if you want this to be a little more challenging on the core, of course, let your hands come down by your sides and move the knees in a circle. And the bigger the circle here, the more challenging it will feel. The smaller the circle and the more support you have with your hands, the less challenging it will feel. And then you're simply just going to reverse that and go the other direction. And then let those feet come all the way down to the floor. The knees are going to be bent. Arms are going to be by your sides. This time the palms are going to face the floor. And then bring your feet a little wider than hips distance. And you're going to flex your feet. So ideally, the toes and the balls of the feet are coming off the mat. And you're just going to start to rock those knees side to side. So getting a deeper twist here in the low back. And then if you want to incorporate a little bit of a stretch in the front of the hip and in the quadricep, then whichever knee is on top, you're going to push that knee towards the wall on the other side of the room. So you're pushing the knee away from the body. And that hip might lift up a little bit, which is okay. And you might slow it down, really kind of savor in that stretch. Good. Let's go one more side. And of course, we'll meet back in the center. And once you come back to center, you're going to heel toe your feet so that they're back to hip distance apart. And we're just going to do this dynamic, I call it dynamic half butterfly or half Supta Baddha Konasana. So you're going to start with just the right leg. Arms are still by your sides, and you're going to let that right leg drop down towards the floor, coming to the outside edge of the foot. And then you're going to bring it back up to center. And you'll just flow with that, letting it drop down, exhaling, bringing it back up to center. And the idea here is that you're engaging and squeezing in the inner thigh as you bring the knee back up. And then, of course, the left leg, the one we're not thinking about, that's trying to remain as still as possible. Good. Let's do one more. Just starting to kind of warm those inner thighs up. We're working today on inner thighs and outer hip. Once you do that one more, you're just switching sides. So a right leg is going to stay nice and neutral. And then you're going to let that left leg drop down towards the floor and then bring it back up. And just flowing a little bit back and forth with that. Right? No judgment if the right leg wobbles a little bit. It's okay. And just keep some focus on trying to keep it as still as you can. And again, squeezing that left inner thigh as the knee draws back up. Good. Let's do one more on this side. And then after you do that one more, you're going to drop your right knee back out. I want you to point your toes here, and we're just going to lift the leg up, including the foot, and down a little bit. It doesn't have to come up far. So you're going to lift it up and you're going to lift it down. Think more about kind of lifting just the foot, and the shin and the knee will follow. So we're getting a little bit of strength here now in that inner thigh. My inner thighs seem to be like a really challenging muscle to strengthen, but they're important when you walk and when you walk upstairs or taking a walk up a hill or down a hill. Perfect. So the next time your foot comes back down to the floor, you're squeezing that inner thigh, bringing the knee back up to center. And of course, we'll go to the other side. So let the left leg drop out. You're going to point the toes, and then you're just going to start to lift that leg up and then slowly bring it back down, right? So you don't want to be like slamming your foot back towards the mat, but it's a really slow and controlled action. And the foot is the focus because the rest of the leg's going to follow. Mm, It's literally all connected, right? Awesome. So we are going to do one more of these. And then you're going to squeeze that inner thigh, bring it all the way back up. All right. We're going back to the other side. So you have the option of staying in this bent knee position, okay, and doing that lift again. That would be your modification. And if you prefer, you can straighten that leg out, okay? Your toes are pointed and your pinky toe side is towards the floor. So you're doing this external rotation with the hip, and then you're going to lift up and then slowly and controlled bring it back down. So if you're doing this straight leg and you feel like it's too much for you, you're going to go back to that bent leg, that modification. It doesn't have to come up very high either, right? It might come up more parallel with the knee. That's going to be more challenging. It might lift up like an inch. That's less challenging. But you're just going to determine where your body is right now. I don't even like to say where your body is today, but where it is right now, because where it was an hour ago, where it is, where it will be this afternoon might be completely different than in this moment. Good. So we're going to do just one more. And then you'll put the foot down, let that right knee bend, and of course, switch sides, right? So this side might feel different than the right side. So you might be in that bent leg position on the left, or you might straighten the leg, right? And just remember, you want your pinky toe side towards the mat. So you're doing this external rotation of the hip. And then you're just going to start to lift that left leg, whether it's bent or straight, and then slowly lower it down. So there's control there, there's intention there. Right? You might play around with a little bit and say, oh, okay, well, I'm going a little bit off the floor, but maybe I could do a little more, and you try. And maybe that's too much. Right? What's most important is that you push yourself, but only to the safest place. Good. One more. Very nice. Go ahead and bend that knee, place the foot on the floor. And now I'm going to actually have you come up onto your forearms. So the knees are still bent, okay, but you're resting on your forearms. And you're going to straighten your right leg out in front of you. Okay? And you're going to squeeze that knee in towards the chest. So using your abdominals. Modification for this would be to go like so, right? So you're straightening the leg and then you're just bending the knee, putting the foot on the floor. It's your modification. Otherwise, you're using the abdominals, you're using the hip flexor. Yep, very nice. And you're squeezing that in. Beautiful. Right? And just like a lot of the exercises that we do in our classes, right? Sometimes we start them and we think, this isn't really doing much, but then I have you do it for a while, and then you start to feel that engagement. So that's what we're working on right now. That's why I'm just talking, talking, talking. Mm, Good. Let's do one more. After that, one more, of course, knee is going to bend, foot's coming back to the floor, and you're simply going to go to the other side. So straighten your left leg, and then you're bringing that knee in towards the chest. right? You're propped up on your elbows and on your forearms. If you need to modify, you're straightening the leg and just bending the knee, coming back to that starting position. And so I always like to offer you modifications. And breathing as you do it, of course. So we talk a lot about in class how when your chest or torso is being compressed or closed, that's when you're exhaling. So clearly you're exhaling as the knee is coming in, and you're inhaling as the torso is opening up. Because you have to work with your lungs. Good. So my count after this one, I've got one more. Make it nice and even. After that one more, of course, placing the feet on the floor. And I'm going to have you now roll onto your side. Okay, so I've had lots of feedback about this outer hip little series that we do, and it has been positive feedback. So I'm going to incorporate it again into our class, right? You've got several options for the arm. Okay, you can rest your arm down and put your head on kind of your bicep here. I like to support my head with my hand. That's an option, but really it doesn't matter. What matters more is what's happening here in the legs. So you're going to bend your knees and you're going to bring your knees forward a little bit. Think like your heels in line with your tailbone. Okay. And we're starting with clam. So left hand is in front of you for your support. You are not leaning back like this. Okay. And you're just going to keep the feet together and you're going to lift that top knee up. So the left knee is lifting up and then it's coming back down. Okay. And if you are not leaning back, okay, it's not going to lift very high. So if it's not lifting high, you're doing it right. Think about it that way. Good. So feet are staying together. You're going to start to feel some work here in the outer hip and your outer glute, maybe a little bit in your outer thigh. And just using that left hand to support you. Yeah, so I'm going to do two more at my pace, my count. Awesome. So now we're going to reverse that and you're going to keep your knees together. So we just worked on external rotation. Now we're going to work on internal rotation of the hips. So the knees are going to stay together and you're just going to lift your left foot up and bring it back down. Okay. I'm just kind of lubricating that hip joint. And let's do one more here. Very nice. You're going to straighten your top leg, your left leg. Okay, I want you to point your toes and you're just going to make little circles, right? So the hips are going to want to shift around and move around as you're making these little circles. But try to keep your hips as stable as possible, of course. And then reverse the circle, go the other direction. It doesn't really matter which direction you started because you're going to get both in. Very nice. Now tap the toes down. They might not touch. You might have to really stretch to make that happen. And then you're just going to lift it back up. So you're going to tap it down, lift it up. Beautiful. And at the end of class, we're going to do a really nice pigeon stretch to stretch all this out. Awesome. All right. Flex your foot. Okay. Make sure your left hand is sturdy and you're going to bring your leg, sorry, forward, and then you're going to point your toes and you're going to swing it back. So flex the foot, bring it forward, and point the toes and swing it back. Okay. Don't worry so much about the range of motion, how far forward or back it's going. Whatever you're doing is great. And remember, when we do the other side here in a minute, it might be different, and that's okay too. Good. One more forward, one more back. Beautiful. You're going to straighten your bottom leg. You're going to bend your top leg, your left leg, and just put your foot on the floor in front of your bottom right leg. And then you're going to point your right toes, and then you're just going to lift it up and lift it down. So back to those inner thighs now. And then again, if it comes an inch off the floor and back down, you're working that inner thigh. If it comes up higher, you're working your inner thigh. So I always like to say, don't worry so much about the range of motion. Just get the motion. Good. So the next time it lifts up, you're going to hold it. And you're just going to take some pulses, little pulses up and down. And release. Very good. So, of course, we're doing the exact same thing, but on the other side. Okay. If you want to, you can just roll over. That's fine. I'm kind of switching this way so that you can still see me demonstrate. Okay, so you kind of decide how you want your head supported, whether it's on your straight arm with the bicep or whether you lift your head up and rest it in your hand. Okay. And the knees are bent, your right arm's in front of you, giving you support. Your heels are kind of in line here with your tailbone, with your hips. And we'll just start with our clam. So you're going to lift it up and you're going to bring it back down. And the knee lifts up and the feet stay together. Be mindful that if you're getting this really big, wide range of motion, that probably means that you're leaning back as you come up. So try to avoid that. Good. And you'll start to feel it probably at this point, if not already, in the outer hip, glute, think piriformis, right? A lot of times our piriformis, we have pain in that area because it's the muscles around it are weak. Let's do one more. And then you're going to keep the knees together and reverse that clam. And then you're going to lift the foot up. So now working on that internal rotation. Awesome. A little joint work today. All right, one more. And then you're going to straighten your leg. And we're going to take our little circles. Okay, so you're just kind of circling whatever direction you want to circle. Doesn't matter. We'll get them both in. And then reverse it other direction. Beautiful. Then you're going to tap down and lift up. Let's tap it down and lift it back up. And just like we talked about last week, just remember when you feel a little bit of that muscle burn, that just means that you are getting stronger. So don't be afraid of it. All right, so for my count, this is my last one here. Very good. And you're going to straighten your bottom leg, your left leg, bend your right leg, put your right foot in front of the left leg. Make sure your right hand's still giving you some support. And oh, sorry, actually, I forgot our swing. So go back to the other side, other position, and you are going to flex your foot. Sorry about that. Bring it forward, point the toes, and swing it back. Right? Flex the foot, bring it forward, point the toes, and swing it back. Okay. Again, not worrying about the range of motion so much, just making sure there is motion. One thing I find that yoga really does a great job of, though, is it teaches us a lot about our bodies. It teaches us about imbalances, right? Physically, energetically. And so maybe just assessing for a moment how this side feels different, how it feels different, where it feels different than the other side. Good. Let's do one more. And now switch into that inner thigh work. Okay, so the right foot is down, knee is bent, and left foot is straight on the bottom, and you're just going to lift up and you're going to bring it back down. All right, so now working back into that inner thigh area. Again, it doesn't have to go up really high. It's okay if it doesn't. We're going to do one more. And then you're going to bring it back up and just give some little pulses. Nothing big, nothing crazy, just a couple little pulses here. And release that down. Lovely. All righty. So come up to sit, have a seat, grab a sip of water if you like. I'm going to grab a quick sip. So remember, if it feels kind of challenging to sit, right, you can sit on top of a pillow, you can sit on top of a bolster, you can sit on a blanket just to kind of lift your hips up a little bit. But we are going to do cat cow today seated. I know a lot of times we do it on our hands and knees, but we have some other things we're doing on our hands and knees today. So I don't want your wrists to be too sore. All right. So cat cow seated, you're going to put your hands on your knees. And as you exhale, right, tailbone's coming forward. You're going to round the back one vertebra at a time and let the head drop, looking towards that belly button. As you inhale, you're going to lift the tailbone, arch the back, lift the chest, look up. And of course, I always do like to say that if you've had whiplash or if you have neck issues and it doesn't feel good to look up, your modification is at the top of that inhalation, you look straight ahead, but you're pulling the shoulders back and the chest open. And really being intentional about working this, thinking one vertebra at a time. Let's do one more. And after that, one more, we're just going to meet cross-leg position. So I recently had somebody share with me a video of a goal that they want to be able to get from a seated position into a standing position without using their hands. And so part of being able to do that is to be able to get from here and lean yourself forward without this space being too tight. All right, so we're going to work on that right now. We're not doing the whole thing, but this is going to help you. So you're just going to place your hands in front of you. I'm going to do a side view so you can kind of see my back as well. Right, so I'm hinging from my hip crease. I know we talk about that a lot, right? So I'm hinging from my hip crease, right? I'm not doing this, but I'm bringing my chest forward. My hip crease is hinging, and I just start to walk my hands forward as far as they go. Okay, so you might find that you're right here, and then some of your muscles are starting to grip and tell you that's far enough. And so then you stay right there, you don't go further. But maybe you have the ability today in this moment to walk those hands further forward. Maybe you can drop the elbows and rest on the forearms. If you do that, then your head is going to look down. So you want to keep your neck nice and neutral here. You're just going to take some big breaths. Big, slow, deep breath. I'm a big believer in sighs when you're in a forward fold. So if you want to take some sighs and kind of release some of that tightness and tension, you can. Maybe for these last few moments, you come maybe a little bit further. Maybe those fingertips inch forward about an inch. And then you're slowly going to walk yourself back up to your starting position. And we are going to switch the crossing of the legs. So whatever leg was in front, it's going to be in the back and switching. Okay, so doing that same thing again, find the hip crease, really important. Move from the hip crease. So it's like your chest is going to come forward, right? The back is not rounding to get into this fold here. And you're just walking the hands forward as far as they go with comfort. Maybe you find that you can come forward and maybe the elbows drop. Perhaps the stretch on the other side allowed the back and hips to open a little bit. And then you take those big deep breaths, nice and slow. Right, so remember that breathing slowly, breathing deeply, that actually tells your body and your brain that it's okay to relax and it's okay to stretch. The breath plays a really big role. And then for these last few moments, perhaps the fingertips reach forward a little bit further. And then you slowly walk yourself all the way back up. Very nice. So you just stay how you are. I am moving so you can see me better from the front angle. And we'll just take a few side stretches. So right hand's coming down to the floor. Left arm's going to reach out to your side. So depending on your mobility, right? In the side of your chest and in your shoulder, right? You might come right here and just start to lean over onto that right hand. And maybe you're reaching out through your fingertips, letting your head drop. Maybe you find it's okay to reach up a little higher, maybe towards the ceiling. Maybe you find that you can really bend this right elbow and reach over. Okay. The more you extend through the fingertips, right? Think of active fingertips, then the more the stretch, more intense the stretch is going to feel. Good. Bring it all the way back up. And we're just going to go the other side. Okay. One side might be different than the other. It's okay. So this time, left fingertips are on the floor. You're going to reach out through the right hand. So maybe you kind of stop halfway. You just kind of assess, how does that feel? Maybe it feels okay for you to lift up a little higher. Maybe it's up towards the ceiling. So the higher this right arm is going, the more your left elbow is bending. Okay. And then maybe you reach it all the way over. Maybe you drop onto that left elbow, but you're reaching through those fingertips really strong. And of course, breathing. Good. All right. Bring yourself all the way back up. And now you are going to take the soles of the feet together. So earlier I said a half butterfly, half Supta Baddha Konasana. So now this is butterfly seated. All right. Your feet might be like way out here, and that's fine. You're going to hold more onto your shins. Okay. The further in your feet go, the more ability you'll have to hold maybe onto your ankles or even clasp your hands and place them around your toes. That's also an option, right? And I don't want you to flap your knees or anything like that, like a butterfly. Okay. You're going to press the feet together, right? So I'm pressing like the heels of my feet and the outer edges of my feet. I'm squeezing them together to let my knees drop more. So it comes from activating the outer thighs on each side. Think of, my teacher used to say, feel like you're pulling the muscle from the outer knee up to the hip, right? You're engaging that, and that will allow the knees to drop more. And if it's available to you, you lean forward, maybe just a little bit. Awesome. All right, so release that. Let those knees come back together. You're going to come onto your hands and knees now. Okay. So a little tabletop action. And since we already did our cat cow, we are going to do spinal balance right out of the gate. Okay. So tabletop, knees are hip distance apart, right? Fingertips are spread pretty wide. And we will start with just the right leg. Okay. So your right leg can come behind you, your toes can stay tucked. This is your modification. If you want to go a little further, you keep that right foot flexed and you lift the right leg up. Okay. If you want to go further, your left arm can reach out in front of you. Okay. You want to look down towards the mat. The neck is nice and neutral, of course. Belly is in. Press back through the heel. If your arm is lifted, reach forward through the fingertips. Right? Feel that? We call it bifurcation, right? Extending equally in opposite directions. And then you're just going to release that down. And you're going to go to the other side, right? So left leg comes back. Maybe your toes stay on the floor. Maybe you work on lifting that leg up. Keep the heel and foot flexed. And then maybe you reach your right arm forward. Right? You're breathing, you're looking down towards the mat here, and then you're going to push back a lot through that left heel. And if the arm is lifted, you're going to reach forward a lot with the right fingertips. Good. And then you're going to bring it back to center. Awesome. Now, bring your right leg back. And we're just going to do these little cheetahs, okay? So I want you to keep your hands on the floor and you're going to bend the knee, bring it in towards your head and let the head drop like you're meeting your knee to your head. And then you're going to extend that leg back out. So you can keep it on the floor, you can have it lifted up. And then you're going to exhale, you're going to squeeze it in. You're going to inhale and you're going to open it back up. Good. So we're going to do just two more. You're going to exhale, squeeze it in. And then you're going to open it back up. And then one more time, you're going to exhale, squeeze it in. And then you're going to open it back up. Very nice. Other side. Okay, so left leg's back. Keep your toes down. You can lift the leg, your choice. And then you're going to exhale, squeeze it in. And then inhale, open it back up. Good. So three more times. We're doing a total of 4 on each side. Clearly. Good. One more. Awesome. Let that come down. Bring your big toes together. Let the knees come nice and wide. And we're going to take some hip circles. All right. So the bigger these circles are, the more you're kind of letting your hips come out to the side, the more you're going to get a stretch in those inner thighs that we worked some of. Goodness, there is no way. It is already 10:46. My watch wrong? That is wild. Today's class flew by. All right, so I want you to reverse those circles, go the other direction. Beautiful. All right, so from here, come up to stand. Lovely. So bring your feet nice and wide. And you're going to turn your toes out a little bit here. We're going to start with some hip circles and we're going to do a couple things with our legs nice and wide. So, right, you're hula hooping it out. Good. Remember, the more that your torso comes forward and the hips go back, the more stretch you get in the back of the legs here. Sometimes that can be really nice. And then you're just going to reverse it. Y'all know the drill. Awesome. All right, so bring yourself back to neutral. Toes are pointing out a little bit. Okay, I call this sunflower. So you're just going to inhale, you're going to reach your arms up. You're going to exhale, you're going to bend your knees and kind of like swoop the floor. And then you're going to come all the way back. So you're just exhaling. Maybe you're swooping the floor. Maybe your hands don't touch the floor. It's okay. Don't worry about that. You can swoop the air. Good. So this is really good for the lymph system, right? Get some blood flowing. Yeah, very nice. Strengthen the leg. Awesome. Let's do one more. And you're going to bring your arms by your sides. And we're coming into goddess. Okay. So always remember with goddess, just like in warrior two, the knees are going to want to come in. Okay. Try not to let that happen. So you're pulling them back. Similar to when we were in that bound ankle pose and I said, pull this outer thigh muscle, engage it. Feel like you're pulling from your outer knee back to your hip. Okay. So you bend the knees, but you're letting the knees pull back. Maybe you bend just a little bit, right? Maybe the knees let you drop more. And then just lift the arms up. Breathe. We're not here long, I promise. Good. Awesome. Release those arms, straighten the legs, turn the toes so they point forward. So I kind of kick my heels out. And then you're coming into this nice wide leg forward fold. And if you feel like the floor is really far away, you can always bring your feet further apart. And that will help you get a little closer down to the floor. Good. And you're just going to start to go side to side. So these little like mini side lunges, you're going to bend one knee, and then straighten that leg, and then bend the other knee, and then straighten that leg, and just move it side to side here. Let's do one more on each side. And then you're going to keep your left hand down on the floor and just put it kind of right underneath your chest. And then you're going to take your right hand and maybe it comes to your right hip and you start to twist, bringing that right shoulder back. Maybe it feels okay for you to lift your right arm towards the ceiling, right? If you do that and you think, no, it doesn't feel okay, then you're going to put your hand back on your hip. Just take a few breaths here. Good. Bring it back to center. Switch sides. This time, right hand is directly under the chest. Left hand's going to come to your hip, right? Start to twist. Maybe you twist and you think, oh, I might try to reach that left arm up. You can try that. Just see how it feels. Beautiful. Bring it all the way back to center. Heel toe the feet in. So you're just walking those feet a little further underneath your body. Then you bend the knees and bring yourself all the way back up. Awesome. All right. So our balance today, we're going to do a balance and then we will lay down and do a nice pigeon stretch for those outer hips that we worked. All right. It is a knee hug, essentially. So you're going to stand on your right foot and you're going to start maybe on your tippy toes, the left foot, right? Keep the chest high, lift the front of the spine, all the things we know to do when we're standing. Maybe you start to hover the foot a little bit. If you do hover the foot, you want to flex that foot. Maybe you bring the knee up and grab around the shin. Maybe the shin's not available. You can grab underneath the thigh. Okay. And you're just looking at something that's not moving. If you want more challenge, I always try to give you modifications and mid-range and challenge. Then you can also reach the arms out to the sides. And then you're going to slowly come out of it the way that you came in. Good. Very good. All right. So we're going to go to the other side. Remember, one side's always easier than the other when it comes to balancing, of course. So you might start out toes on the floor. And you might try to lift the foot. You lift the foot, you're going to flex the foot. You might work on bringing that knee up. And again, perhaps grabbing around the shin. The shin's not available, grabbing behind the thigh. Either one. And then also, there we go. Most challenging, reaching the arms out to the side. Lovely. And bring yourself all the way back down slowly with control. Fantastic. All righty. So I'm going to have you lie down and we're going to do a nice, it's called pigeon stretch. It's a lovely stretch for the hips and a lot of PTs, if you have a sciatica or any issues like that, will recommend doing this stretch. They also recommend doing that the clam exercise a lot for sciatica. All right, so you're lying down, your knees are bent, and you're just going to cross your right ankle over your left knee. And you might get here and think this is plenty good for me. I'm going to stay right here. And so you can do that. If you want more, you're going to take your hands, grab the back of the left thigh. So the right hand actually comes through the legs, left hand comes around, and then you can pull those knees in towards the chest. Right? Some people like to rock a little side to side. So if you're stretching your right hip, the more you rock to the left, that stretch is usually going to intensify. Some people like to just find the spot and stay there and breathe. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way, to be honest. And then you're just going to release that. Lovely. And go to the other side. Okay, so you're going to flex the left foot, ankles crossing over that right knee. Reach through, grab the back of the right thigh, right? If you're bringing the knees in, and then you can use your hands to bring the knees as close as you want towards the chest. Again, if you like rocking a little, you can rock. Sometimes I'll rock just to find where I need that stretch the most, and then I'll stay there and I'll take some big breaths. Let that space release. Some people like to rock the whole time, and some people like to stay completely still. Do what feels good to you right now. Very nice. Slowly release out of that. Good. We're going to come into Shavasana and do a little Durga Pranayama. So that 3-part breath. So if in Shavasana, just like when we started, if you like to keep your knees bent, keep your knees bent. If you like to put a pillow or a bolster under the knees, you can do that. And if you like to take traditional Shavasana with the legs straight and the arms by the side, and you're just relaxed. You let the eyes close. You're not gripping, you're not holding, you're not engaging anything. And you start with a few cleansing breaths. Right? Just like in the beginning, you take that big inhalation and then you release it through the mouth. And after you've taken a few of those cleansing breaths, then you let the breath come in and out through the nose. You can do Ujjayi Pranayama if you like. And you're just assessing. So you're assessing like you did a moment ago, I guess an hour or so ago, where the breath is moving the easiest and where the breath is moving the least, right? So what parts of this 3-part breath Do you find that the breath is easy to breathe into and more restricted? Remember, we have the abdomen, the middle torso, and the chest. And the abdomen, of course, the lungs are not in the abdomen, we know. So it's not that you're actually breathing air into the abdomen, but instead, what you're doing is you're using that diaphragm, a diaphragmatic muscle at the bottom of the rib cage. And when you inhale, that diaphragm descends down into the abdomen to create space for the lungs to expand. And that pressing down the diaphragm is what allows the abdomen to expand on that inhale. That's what's actually happening. When you exhale, it rises back up. And so now that you've assessed, I want you to see if you can breathe primarily into the lower portion of the lungs, right? So really engaging that diaphragm, feeling not only the abdomen rise, but the floating ribs in the lower part of the waist, feeling that space expand sideways. And when you exhale, just letting it all collapse back in. And, we're going to break this down into three parts. So, another thing to just notice and pay attention to is when we get to the part where you found in your assessment that it was a little more restricted, okay, just be patient with yourself, give yourself grace when we move into that part of the body because you're having to train those intercostal muscles and the diaphragm to work differently. So now I'm going to see, is it possible for you to breathe just into the middle portion? Okay, so you can think of like navel to the bottom of the sternum, kind of just that middle portion, right? Maybe a little bit above the navel. And then again, trying to let it expand laterally, trying to allow the breath to come into the back of the body. And we've been working on this a little and we'll continue to work on this breath. And you'll find that the more you practice it, the easier it's going to be for you to attain that lateral movement of the rib cage. And then next, I typically don't isolate the chest breathing for very long, but seeing now if you can breathe into the upper portion. And again, breathe into the sides of the chest. Think of breathing into the shoulder blades and letting that space expand. And then now finally tying it all together. Okay. So breathing into the lower portion, to the middle, to the upper, and then breathing out from the upper through the middle down to the lower. It creates that wave. And before you were taking a full breath and you were isolating it into just 1/3 of where you're breathing right now, this full 3-part breath. So you will find likely that the breath doesn't go to the sides as much, it doesn't go to the back as much, and that's just because we're not isolating it into that one little space. So be okay with that. Keep working on it. But you just let it flow like this beautiful wave, right? Expanding that comes from the bottom up and dropping and relaxing, letting go as it goes from the top back down. And I will say that won't get too much into it this session. I'll talk a little bit more about it in the next session. But vagus nerve stimulation is really helpful for relaxation. And doing diaphragmatic breathing, meaning actually using the diaphragm to breathe and not just the muscles between the ribs, that helps to stimulate the vagus nerve. Just learning that abdominal portion of it, which from my experience in teaching is usually for a lot of people the most restricted, challenging area, getting that diaphragm to really respond to the breath. So, like always in my classes, I like you to have that option, especially since this is virtual and you are in the comfort of your own safe space, to continue to rest or continue to do this Durga pranayama, this complete 3-part breath. If you don't feel like moving and getting up, then you don't have to. You can stay and just kind of ignore what I'm about to say and just continue to rest. So otherwise, you will start to let that awareness expand back out into your room. Maybe you'll wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes. You might just move the body in any ways that feel good and comfortable to you. And eventually you'll roll, usually suggested to the right side, unless there's a reason you would prefer the left. And you come up to sit. And you just feel in the effects of the practice today. The movement, the stretching, the strength, the breathing, the centering, the awareness. And I thank all of you for coming, for trusting me to guide you in your practice today. I have such a deep connection and deep love for each and every one of you. So I always like to end with peaceful thoughts, peaceful words, and peaceful intention. Namaste.